we need to talk about. We're talking about independence. We're talking about high-end watchmaking.
Mm.
Kevin recently showed Nick a watch that he thinks is sort of a pinnacle of watchmaking, in-house movement, micro rotor, and everything like that. What was the watch again, Kevin?
This one?
No, the one that you showed us yesterday, and Nick's not convinced it's a totally in-house movement.
Oh, I was talking about the Chopard Luke 1860.
Okay, tell us about that watch.
So you can probably put a picture of.
Yeah, we'll put something up.
It's my favorite watch that's came out in recent years. Gorgeous dial, gorgeous case, gorgeous movement.
Mhm.
I talked about they use the same dial maker from Philip IV, and they claim to have in-house movement with micro rotor, and their in-house steel, which a lot of other brands have,
Sure.
to kind of stand out from the pack.
So this is not an inexpensive watch.
No, it's $23,000 if you're lucky. It's
Sure.
very limited. But what we debated about was how brands are now using the word in-house and what it really means.
What it actually means and what movement originality means.
Yeah.
Nick came in today and through his watchmaking research and knowledge, says that this watch is the movement is essentially a copy of an older Universal Genève movement.
Design language.
Design language. Okay.
So it was inspired.
Very
Inspired.
it looks really remote. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
I don't want Chopard coming after me. I was going to say it looks a little similar to this.
similar.
But this is very common in the watch world.
I was going to say, I mean, people have been making watches, especially, intricately finished movements and case styles for years now. And there can only be so many ways to get a movement to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where's the line of originality versus inspiration? And what does it mean to truly make a movement in-house? I mean, I'm sure a lot of watchmakers are all sourcing screws and components and all those little things that
Right.
you don't want to waste time making at your manufacturer for, but
there's brands that do it.
There are brands that do it, but how many compared to the greater watchmaking world actually do?
Yeah.
What is an in-house movement in modern watchmaking?
In-house, I guess, would obviously be a different design or a different functional change to a movement, because you're not fully going to redesign something, most likely, because they're just going to take from something that already existed, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Yeah. The other aspect of in-house that I find a little bit overselling is that it is mostly machine-made stuff. So that even if it's in-house and they're using that as a selling point, it's just a movement that's swapped out when it goes to the factory. So
yeah, that's another thing we should talk about is when you service your watch, what do they really do to it?
Well, certain brands associated with Rolex, but not Rolex, I'm not going to say exactly, are known to movement swap. Then you got Rich Prawn Group has a few brands that they're just movement swapping. So, not real watchmaking, in my opinion. It's more technician work.
Yeah.
And I think in the real watchmaking aspect, you see a lot more vintage stuff because parts are unavailable for a lot of the higher end stuff, especially. So you're going to have to repivot watches. You're going to have to refinish parts. You're going to have to go through a chrono wheel and sit there and mess with the teeth to make sure that it runs smoothly. Like that, the real watchmaking aspect is applied almost 100% of the vintage, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's kind of sad to hear that because, when people buy a $6,000 watch, they think, I'm going to take care of it, I'm going to service it, and I'll give it to my kid.
Yeah.
But then, and then you find out every time you send it in to the manufacturer, they just put a new movement in.
Yep. If it's bad enough, they will.
Yeah.
Like losing the core of the watch,
Yeah.
Because you're right, a lot of people, us as watch people who buy multiple watches are a very, very small percentage of the global watch market. And probably most watch people are, I don't know if you have any more insight to this, but I imagine, the 99% of people who buy watches are probably one-time buyers. They might go in and get a job and they'll buy their Tag Heuer or what have you, and then that's just kind of their watch that they have for a long time.
Yeah.
And especially if they're buying it as something they want to pass down, movement swaps or things like that, do kind of wear away at the originality, I guess you could say, of the watch that they're hoping to buy as an heirloom piece.
It just makes me question quality again too. If something is if so much little of work is put into something, or it's just completely machine made and not really QC'd at a certain level, that they are just like, oh, it's so easy to make another one. We're just gonna
That's the thing.
throw it in there like nothing. I mean, what are they putting into this movement? What real human effort, and the whole reason that, in my opinion, horology and watchmaking watches are just such a cool thing, is that humanity is inside of them. In a sense, like it really is that human aspect. Somebody wears a vintage watch, you see dents on it, you see like that's another aspect I even go into with case polishing.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of human touch in modern watches. I mean, mostly done 99.99% on machines.